Third quarter earnings season kicked off last night with Alcoa and Yum Brands, and this morning with Costco, along with updates from Cummins and Chevron. Global growth concerns remain front and center as earnings reports start trickling in. I'm Nicole Erkin, and the morning call starts right now.
Good morning, I'm Scott Rudd, the Chief Strategic Officer of T3Live.com.
And I'm Nicole Erkin with The Street. So we started out earnings season. We have positive reports in from Yum, but a little bit of negativity from Chevron along with Cummins interim updates. Alcoa was a little bit of a non-event. What are you thinking right here with these names?
Well, as far as these names, like earnings season, you have the haves and have-nots. I think Yum was a pleasant surprise. It shows that maybe China's not as bad as everyone's saying. As far as Alcoa, everyone focuses on it. It's a non-event. But then I think Chevron was a bit of a surprise, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And Cummins, I think no one was not expecting it to have a shortfall. So overall, status quo, but the action lately has been very faulty as far as the upper levels of these markets.
Yeah, and these names in particular, we're hearing a lot about China, we're hearing a lot about global growth. So these are important initial read-throughs. So when you're looking at the S&P and the market as a whole, what levels are you looking to come in?
Well, if you recall on Friday with the jobs number, we tried to have excitement. Everyone was like, oh yeah, 7.8% unemployment. I don't think people really believed it, but that's another note. What happened when that was important was we went to the highs of around 1470. Remember the old highs of 1474? And we failed. That's a small faulty signal to say sell some strength. Maybe we're not going to have any more momentum. So if you take a look at the chart here, with that in the S&P, you will see, obviously this is your macro picture, but right around here, looks like it could break this accelerated uptrend. And if that were the case, there's the 50-day at 1424. So at this point, you have to really just measure your time frame. And I know IBD, which I follow very closely, put us in big picture market under pressure. Not meaning game over, but technically we could see some more downside. So, I'm going to watch yesterday's low around this 1440, then you have 1430, then the 50-day moving average I think is very important, right around 1424.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like you had mentioned previously, expectations are pretty low going into the quarter. We saw that with Alcoa, for example. After a so-so quarter, it didn't really do much. So it might be interesting coming in here. You mentioned, though, that the NASDAQ and the tech sector in particular has been weak. So
yes.
What does that say about the overall market?
Well, as traders, you always look for clues.
Yeah.
And recently, technology has been very weak. And if you look at the chart of the Qs, you will see that it broke the 50-day already. So right now the question is, will the other sectors follow? You do have somewhat of a head and shoulders top here in the Qs too. You have the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder. We talked about this right here. This is when it sliced the 50-day coming into some support. So the question is, will the SPX do the same thing? Will technology lead us to this area too? So right now I think, traders are just treading lightly, which, I think is a good thing to do considering we're still up about 15% on the year in the S&P, 17% in the NASDAQ. People who've acted well and managers, they're locking it in. So if we start coming back in, those who are looking to chase performance, they might just set back and just say, okay, I don't need to get involved.
And so we should keep tech on our radar. That might give us a tell on the S&P. Now, in addition to looking at earnings, we're also looking and continuing to get those read-throughs. We continue to focus on some long-term secular themes, balancing your portfolio with some defensive names. And at CNBC and NBC in particular, there's been a focus on health and health-levered plays. Of course, one big name is Bristol Myers, big pharma. It has a nice 4% yield. Other names, GNC, some of the gym names like Lifetime Fitness.
Exactly.
These are always interesting to keep on your radar.
Well, it's good to have some names that not everyone focuses on. So they might be slower, they might be steadier. So we'll go over those levels in the long-form version.
Yeah, and it's important also to think about, what else is coming up. Earnings season's very, fast-paced, catalyst-driven. Of course, talk on the street now are financial earnings. Last night after the close, or toward the end of the day, we heard some negative news from a Wells Fargo. A lawsuit brought down the sector a little bit. We have some earnings starting to come out on Friday. What are you looking at for the financials right here?
I think the expectations are starting to get built up and they're getting higher. So at this point, if they don't deliver, I think it could be another faulty signal or blow to the market. So, as the dots, are out there and you try and connect them, that's what you have to do to maneuver your portfolios. You don't want to sell into fear. You want to sell into faulty signals. So when fear sets in or volatility increases, you can embrace that opportunity. So I think JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, those are going to be two names that the traders focus on, and we'll go more into that, later this week on the morning call.
Really important points to keep in mind. So we're going to go into these names and more on the full form. Stay around and we'll be back.
Hi, I'm Sean Hendelman of T3 Live, where we train, coach, and mentor traders in order to help you put your money to work with confidence. The T3 Live approach is a blueprint for you to recognize, adapt, and ultimately take advantage of different market conditions. To begin your training with T3 Live, we would like to offer you the opportunity to enroll in our free 30-day online home study course. Fill in your name and email address, and I'll see you on the other side.